What is the one thing that terrifies the forces of darkness the most? What is the one truth that makes the most ancient and powerful demons tremble in absolute abject fear? The answer is hidden in plain sight, tucked away in a story most of us have heard, but few have ever truly understood. We're about to journey to a desolate shoreline, to witness a confrontation so raw and so revealing, it will forever change how you see the battle between light and darkness. The secret of what demons truly fear is not what you think, and the ending of this story holds a promise that might just be meant for you right now in this very moment. Before we dive into the heart of this incredible event, I want you to do something for me. Pause for just a second and look around. In the comments below, tell me where in the world you are listening from and what time it is for you. Let's create a map of where this story is reaching right now. Imagine a man who has forgotten his own name, not through amnesia or the gentle fading of old age, but because his identity has been violently overwritten by 1,000 screaming voices. Before the darkness, he was someone. He had a life, a trade, perhaps a family. Maybe he was a fisherman, his hands calloused from years of mending nets and hauling in the day's catch from the very sea he now stares at with vacant eyes. Perhaps he was a father, a man whose children would run to greet him at the end of the day, their small hands fitting perfectly into his. He would have laughed. He would have known love. He would have had a place in the tapestry of his community in the region of the Decapolis. But then the shadows began to creep in. It didn't happen all at once. It never does. It started subtly, a strange thought that didn't feel like his own, a sudden, inexplicable surge of rage that he couldn't control, leaving him bewildered and ashamed in its wake. His family would have noticed first, a change in his eyes, a flicker of something alien and cold. They would have whispered amongst themselves, their concern growing into a palpable fear. They tried to help, of course. They would have prayed, sought healers, offered comfort, but the darkness was a rising tide, and their love, as strong as it was a sandcastle against its inexorable advance. Soon he was no longer himself. The entity, the infestation, took more and more control. His voice changed, deepening into a guttural sound that was not human. His strength became monstrous. When the concerned and terrified townspeople tried to restrain him, to protect him from himself and others, their efforts were futile. The Gospel of Mark tells us that he had often been bound with shackles and chains, but he would tear the chains apart and break the shackles in pieces. The metal that was meant to hold ships at anchor was like thread in his hands. No one was strong enough to subdue him. Think of the desperation of his family and friends. Every attempt to bring him back, to hold on to the man they once knew, ended in failure and violence. The chains represented their best efforts, their strongest solutions, and they were utterly powerless. Eventually, they were forced into an act of profound sorrow. They had to let him go. They had to drive him away for the safety of everyone else. The man they loved was now a menace, a terror that haunted the outskirts of their lives. The demons, now in full control, drove him away from all human contact, away from any source of help or light. They led him to the one place the living instinctively avoid, the tombs, a place of death, decay, and ritual uncleanness. Imagine the profound spiritual cruelty of this act, forcing a living, breathing man created in the image of God to live among the dead. They severed every connection he had to love, to community, to his own humanity. He was utterly, terrifyingly isolated. His days and nights blurred into a constant, unending nightmare. The scriptures paint a horrifying picture. Night and day among the tombs and in the hills he would cry out and cut himself with stones. Imagine the pain, not just the physical agony of sharp rocks tearing at his flesh, leaving his body a canvas of scars and open wounds, but imagine the deeper, soul-crushing torment. Imagine 1,000 malevolent voices screaming inside your head, never-ending, driving you to self-destruction. The demons that called themselves Legion were not just making him mad, They were systematically, slowly, torturing him to death. His body grew weaker from the constant wounds and lack of proper nourishment. His spirit fractured a little more with every agonizing shriek that echoed through the desolate hills. His family, from a distance, likely gave up all hope. The man they loved was gone. All they could see was a shell, a puppet animated by pure evil. And this raises a chilling question. Why would these demonic forces go to such lengths to torture one man? Because they despise what God loves. They hate the imago Dei, the image of God in which humanity was created. We are precious to him, and so the forces of darkness seek to deface, degrade, and destroy that image in any way they can. This was not some minor demon causing mischief. When Jesus asked its name, the answer was, "My name is Legion, for we are many." A Roman legion consisted of thousands of soldiers. This means thousands of distinct malevolent entities had infested the body, mind, and soul of this one man. Each one added to his suffering. Each one pushed him deeper into the abyss of madness. Think of his isolation. No one to talk to but the cacophony of voices in his own head. No human touch, only the cold, sharp edges of the stones he used to harm himself. No home but the hollowed-out tombs of the dead. The demons had stripped him of everything. His family, his dignity, his sanity, his very identity. This is a raw, unveiled picture of evil. This is the enemy that Jesus comes to defeat. And as we will soon see, the collision between this profound darkness and the ultimate light would reveal just how powerful and how personal our salvation truly is. Have you ever wondered why Jesus would cross a dangerously stormy sea, seemingly just to reach one single tormented person? The answer reveals something breathtaking about the heart of God, and how far he will go for the one who seems utterly lost. Let's set the scene. Jesus had been teaching the crowds all day. The text implies a long, draining day of ministry. He would have been tired as the sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. Any other teacher would have sought rest. It was the end of the day. It was time to go home. But instead, Jesus looked out across the darkening waters of the Sea of Galilee and said to his disciples, "Let us go over to the other side." This was not a casual suggestion. It was a declaration of intent. Jesus knew exactly who was waiting on that distant shore. He knew about the man among the tombs, the one tormented day and night by a legion of evil spirits. He knew about the man everyone else had given up on. And Jesus, in his divine love and sovereign purpose, decided to go to him. The disciples must have been perplexed. Why cross the sea now as night was falling? The Sea of Galilee was notorious for its sudden, violent storms, especially after sunset, when the cool air from the surrounding hills would rush down to meet the warm, moist air over the water. And why go there? The other side was the region of the Gerasenes, Gentile territory. For Jewish men, this was foreign, uncomfortable land. It was a place they would normally avoid, but their trust in Jesus, though perhaps tested, was enough. They got into the boat. As darkness enveloped them, the disciples' fears were realized. A storm erupted, and this was no ordinary squall. The Greek words used to describe it are furious and violent. This was a storm so ferocious that even these experienced fishermen, men who had spent their lives on this very water, were convinced they were about to die. Massive waves crashed over the sides of the boat, filling it faster than they could bail the water out. The wind howled with a predatory fury, tearing at the sail and threatening to splinter the mast. The little boat was tossed about like a toy in the churning chaos. In their terror, they cried out, "Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing?" They looked for Jesus and found him in the stern, fast asleep on a cushion, in perfect peace amidst the life-threatening chaos. Their cry is so human, so relatable. In the midst of our own life storms, when we feel like we are about to drown, don't we often cry out with the same panicked question, "God, don't you see this? Don't you care?" What happened next still leaves us in awe. Jesus awoke. He stood up facing the raging elements, the screaming wind and the crashing waves, and he spoke 3 simple words in Aramaic, words of command. Peace, be still. The literal translation is even more forceful. Be silenced. Be muzzled. It's the same language a master would use to command a vicious, snarling animal. And instantly, the wind ceased. The towering waves collapsed. The sea became completely calm, as smooth as glass. The silence must have been deafening after the preceding chaos. The disciples stared at one another, their fear of the storm replaced by a new, deeper kind of awe and terror. Who then is this, they whispered, that even the wind and the sea obey him? They were beginning to understand. But let's pause and consider something deeper. Was this just a random, unfortunate turn in the weather? Think about it. Jesus was on a divine rescue mission, a mission to invade enemy territory and liberate a captive soul from the Prince of Darkness. Do you think the demonic realm would simply let that happen without a fight? That storm was more than just a meteorological event. It was spiritual warfare. It was the enemy's first attempt to stop Jesus, to turn him back, to prevent him from reaching that tormented man on the shore. By calming the storm with a mere command, Jesus wasn't just demonstrating his power over nature. He was firing a warning shot. He was warming up for the main event. He was showing his disciples and all of us that the very forces of chaos and destruction that seem so overwhelming are utterly subject to his authority. If the weather itself must obey his voice, what chance could a legion of demons possibly have? As they finally reached the other side, the shore was quiet. The moon cast an eerie glow on the landscape. This moment is significant. The physical storm had been pushed back by the light of the world, a perfect reflection of what was about to happen in the spiritual realm. The shore they landed on was not welcoming. It was Gentile territory, a land dotted with tombs, and as they would soon discover, herds of pigs, animals considered unclean to the Jews. It was a place with a local reputation for being haunted, for being the domain of a dangerous, demonic madman. It's no wonder the disciples were on edge. Why had Jesus brought them to such a God-forsaken place? And then they saw him, a wild figure emerging from the darkness of the tombs, running toward them, screaming. The disciples' first instinct must have been to panic, to grab the oars and push the boat back into the safety of the lake. But Jesus stood his ground. He did not flinch. And here, in this moment, we see the heart of our Savior laid bare. He had crossed a dangerous sea, pushed through a deadly storm, and entered hostile territory, all for the sake of one man whom everyone else had written off. In the economy of God, no soul is a lost cause. No one is too far gone. No one is beyond his reach. Jesus will cross any barrier, cultural, geographical, and even spiritual, to rescue the one who is trapped in darkness. That is why he came to earth in the first place. It's why he crossed the sea that night. And it is why, even today, he is still in the business of pursuing those who think they are too broken to ever be loved. What makes the terrifying terrifyingly afraid? What could possibly cause beings whose entire existence is dedicated to inflicting torment and fear upon others to become paralyzed with terror themselves? We are about to witness the moment that answers this question. As Jesus stepped onto the shore, the demon-possessed man, who would normally attack any who dared to approach, did something utterly unexpected. He ran towards Jesus, but instead of attacking, he fell on his knees. This wild man, who had shattered iron chains and terrorized an entire region, was suddenly prostrate, kneeling as a subject would before a king. The demons within him knew exactly who Jesus was. They needed no introduction. Speaking through the man's lips, they shrieked, "What have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I adjure you by God, do not torment me." Pay close attention to their words. First, they use his full divine title, Jesus, Son of the Most High God. They instantly recognized his cosmic identity and supreme authority. There was no doubt in their minds who stood before them. Then comes the plea, a plea that reveals what they truly fear. Do not torment me. The original Greek implies a torment of judgment, a preemptive punishment. They follow it up with a question that echoes through the corridors of spiritual reality. Have you come here to torment us before the appointed time? This question is staggering. It reveals a profound truth. The forces of darkness know that a day of judgment is coming. They know their time is limited. They understand, perhaps better than many humans, that a final reckoning awaits them, an appointed time when their rebellion will be dealt with once and for all. Their terror is not of Jesus' power in the moment. They already concede that, but of having their final judgment brought forward. When Jesus commanded them, "Come out of the man, you unclean spirit," they didn't argue whether they had to leave. They knew they had no choice. They knew Jesus held absolute, undeniable authority over them. Their resistance was not about if they would obey, but about where they would go. "Do not send us into the abyss," they begged. The abyss. This is not just a generic term for a deep place. In the apocalyptic literature of the time and in the New Testament, the abyssos is a specific place. It is a bottomless pit, a prison for demonic spirits, a place where they are locked away, held in chains of darkness, powerless, awaiting final judgment. It is the one thing they fear more than anything else, being rendered inert, unable to influence, unable to destroy, simply waiting for their ultimate punishment. Being locked away in impotence is their greatest horror. Desperate to avoid this fate, they looked around and saw their opportunity. On a nearby hillside, a large herd of pigs was feeding. "Send us to the pigs, let us enter them," they pleaded. Why the pigs? Because for these disembodied spirits, any vessel is better than the abyss. They are desperate to remain in the physical realm, to continue to have an influence, to carry on their work of chaos and destruction. Being sent into the pigs, even for a short time, was infinitely preferable to being locked away in the abyss. And Jesus, with a single word, gave them permission. Go. Instantly, the legion of unclean spirits left the man and flooded into the herd of about 2,000 pigs. And what happened next is a stark and terrifying demonstration of their true nature. The entire herd, seized by the demonic frenzy, stampeded down the steep bank, plunged into the sea, and drowned. This moment reveals something crucial about evil. Its nature is purely destructive. When it can no longer ruin a human being made in God's image, it will ruin whatever else it can. Its core programming is chaos and death. Whether it possesses a man or an animal, its ultimate goal is the same: destruction. Jesus allowed this dramatic public display for a powerful reason. It made the invisible visible. The people of the region could now see in a tangible, quantifiable way the sheer magnitude and destructive power of the force that had been torturing this one man. The drowning of 2,000 pigs was a physical picture of a spiritual reality. No one could now deny what had happened. No one could claim the man had simply had a moment of clarity or that Jesus had performed some kind of trick. The evidence of the man's deliverance was floating in the water for all to see. Think of it, the townspeople could literally count the cost. 2,000 dead pigs. This was the number of demons that had been tormenting a single human soul. Imagine 1,000 evil voices screaming in your head, 1,000 malevolent wills warring against your own. It is no wonder that no chains could hold him. This confrontation shows us, without a shadow of a doubt, what demons are truly afraid of. It's not just Jesus' power, it is his authority as the agent of God's final judgment. They recognize him instantly. They beg him for mercy. They know that resistance in the presence of the Son of God is utterly futile. The most ferocious, unbridled evil in existence must bow. Imagine waking up to the news that your entire family's livelihood, the primary source of your town's economy, had vanished overnight. That is precisely the reality that confronted the pig herders and the people of the Gerasene region. When the men tending the pigs saw the cataclysmic event, their entire herd stampeding into the sea, they fled. They ran into the town and the countryside, reporting everything that had happened. The news would have spread like wildfire. A crowd quickly gathered, a mixture of curiosity, alarm, and anger, and they journeyed out to the shoreline to see for themselves. What they saw was a scene of shocking contrasts. On the one hand, there was the devastating economic reality, 2,000 pig carcasses floating in the water or washed up on the shore. Years of breeding, feeding, and investment gone in an instant. For this agrarian community, this wasn't just a bizarre incident. It was an economic disaster that would affect many families. On the other hand, standing calmly beside Jesus was the man they all recognized, yet who looked completely different. The raving, violent madman with wild eyes who had once terrified their region was now sitting peacefully. He was dressed, likely in borrowed clothes. He was in his right mind, speaking coherently with Jesus. His eyes were clear, his voice was steady. The self-inflicted wounds on his body were beginning to heal. So where did the crowd focus their attention? On the breathtaking transformation of a tormented soul, on the miraculous healing that had restored a man to his family and community? No. The Gospel of Mark tells us that after the eyewitnesses told the crowd what had happened to the demon-possessed man and about the pigs, the people began to plead with Jesus to leave their region. Instead of celebrating the man's liberation, they were counting the cost of their lost property. They asked Jesus to leave. Let's pause and absorb the weight of that choice. They had the Son of God, the healer, the miracle worker standing in their midst, and they asked him to go away because of the pigs. We can, on a purely human level, understand their practical economic anxiety. This herd of pigs represented a significant financial asset. Pigs were valuable livestock, especially in a Gentile region where there were no dietary prohibitions against pork. Many families likely depended on this industry for their survival. But Jesus had allowed these pigs to be destroyed without a moment's hesitation. Why? Because when a human life is weighed on the scales against property, there is no contest. For Jesus, the restoration of this one man was more valuable than all those animals combined. His calculation was not economic, it was eternal. He allowed the demons to enter the pigs for two reasons. First, as we've seen, it provided an undeniable, visible demonstration of the miracle. Second, it revealed a profound truth about God's value system. The dramatic death of the pigs served another purpose. It forced a choice. It made the miracle impossible to ignore and impossible to domesticate. No one could say the man had just had a good day or that he was getting better on his own. The proof of the power that had tormented him and the greater power that had expelled it was right there for everyone to see. For the man who was healed, any price was worth it. After years of living in the darkness, of cutting himself with stones and crying out in agony, he was finally free. His body was his own again. His mind was clear. He could return to his family, rebuild relationships, and start a new life. But the event forces us to confront our own values. What is more important to us, economic stability or human restoration, material assets or the salvation of a soul? In God's economy, a human being is always infinitely more valuable than a thing. A human soul is priceless because it alone is created in the image of God. Jesus made that abundantly clear on that shoreline. He crossed a stormy sea to reach one abused man. He allowed an entire herd of valuable assets to be destroyed to set that one man free. For Jesus, the math was simple. One soul, 2,000 pigs. This story holds a mirror up to our own hearts. Do we sometimes value our comfort, our finances, our predictable routines more than we value the messy, complicated, and sometimes costly work of seeing a human life transformed. The townspeople asked Jesus to leave. His presence was too disruptive. His power was too frightening. His values were too costly. But the man who had been healed, he begged to go with Jesus. In one encounter, Jesus had given him back everything. And perhaps that's the question the story leaves for us. When Jesus enters our lives, with his disruptive, life-altering power, will we ask him to leave because he costs us something, or will we beg to follow him no matter the price? Now, we are about to discover something even more surprising. What was Jesus' plan for this newly liberated man? When he begged to follow Jesus, you would expect Jesus to welcome him into the boat. Instead, Jesus gave him a mission that would change everything. This reveals how freedom from darkness always comes with a new responsibility, one that can transform an entire community. We have witnessed the incredible power of Jesus over evil. But have you ever stopped to consider what happened when Jesus himself faced his darkest moment? The one who commanded demons with a word would eventually hang on a cross, his own body broken. What was the true physical agony he experienced? The medical reality behind what he endured is shocking. There is something most people don't know about the crucifixion, a pain deeper than the nails. That caused Jesus to cry out words that will change how you understand his sacrifice forever. Don't miss this powerful revelation. Click on the video on your screen to discover what Jesus truly suffered for you. Perhaps the most moving part of this entire account isn't the man living among the tombs, screaming in the night, bound by chains like an animal who is now sitting as a normal human being. Perhaps it's not even the raw power of Jesus Christ calming a raging storm with a word. Perhaps the most profound truth is this, that Jesus would cross every boundary, brave every danger, and walk into the most desolate of places, all to reach one abandoned soul. Sometimes in the chaos of our own lives, we can feel like that man, chained by our habits, our addictions, our past mistakes, isolated by our hurts, living in spiritual tombs where the light can't seem to penetrate. We cry out in our loneliness, but we feel like no one hears. We feel misunderstood, judged by our past, written off, and we ask ourselves, who would dare to enter the desolate territory of our lives? This story answers that question with a resounding yes. And his name is Jesus. He is not afraid of our mess. He is not afraid of our darkness. He is not intimidated by the regions of our lives that we and others have condemned. He comes for the one soul that no matter how broken, no matter how defiled, is still priceless in the eyes of its creator. And notice, he doesn't just heal the body, he restores the soul. He gives back identity, dignity, and purpose. The man who was once a vessel for a legion of demons was not just saved from something, he was saved for something. He was given a mission, and his living testimony prepared an entire region to receive the message of the gospel later on. One liberated soul became a beacon of light for thousands, and so can you. If you see yourself in this story, as lost, as hurting, as broken by darkness, remember that Jesus is willing to cross any storm to find you. He is waiting for you to come out of the dark tombs of your life, not to be condemned, but to be made new, to be restored, to be given a mission. Don't wait until you feel you have lost everything to seek the light. Let the saving power of Jesus transform your life as he did for the man from Gerasa. And then you yourself will become a living testimony to the boundless, relentless love of God. If this story has touched your heart, please leave a comment below. Simply type, "I still believe in the power of Jesus," or perhaps share a blessing you have received. Your story might be the one that helps someone else who is feeling lost find their way to hope. And if you want to continue this journey with us, exploring the stories that stir the soul and strengthen our faith, please subscribe to our channel and be sure to click the notification bell so you never miss a video, because Jesus is still crossing seas. He is still braving the night, all to rescue a soul just like yours. May you and your family live in the peace of God. May you find healing each and every day, and may you find the courage to be a light to others. We'll see you in the next video for another journey, another miracle from the Gospels, right here on our channel, where souls are touched by the divine. God bless.